Did you see the breaking news that two soldiers have just been killed? And the reason it's so significant this time around, two American soldiers killed.
You have a report that there were 3 more that were critically injured that might not make it, so that number is likely to rise.
Yesterday in the strike on Jordan. And Trump said a few weeks ago, I should probably find the exact statement, but he said a few weeks ago, not long after the MOU, he was asked, I'm going to paraphrase here, but he was asked, what would it take for you to go back to a full-blown war? And he said, American soldiers dying. So that was, kind of the red line he drew for going back into.
Well, he was pretty much back in full-scale war already, more or less. So I don't know if it really matters at this point.
War. Now, one can argue we're already at full-blown war, but casualties like this just make it harder to get out or make it harder not to escalate and to retaliate. But we haven't spoken in a while, so what's your reaction on the fact that we're even back into a state of war? And to make things worse, the Americans have been striking infrastructure, Iranian infrastructure, for the last 2 to 3 days. And the Iranians said if the Americans keep striking infrastructure, they will strike the airports tonight in the UAE, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and the ports in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. That's the warning that the Iranians have given. And they also said if the war continues, if the Americans continue striking for the next 2 to 3 days, the Iranians would shift to a full-scale war in terms of rules of engagement, no longer tit for tat. So there's a lot there. American soldiers dead.
Yeah, we had that warning by Iran yesterday already. And yeah, I think it's going to get more serious.
Infrastructure struck in Kuwait as well, a desalination plant and a power plant. Warnings for the airports and the ports in the UAE to be struck. And now American soldiers being killed.
All right. A lot there. Look, is there any surprise that we're escalating towards a full war? We already are in a full war.
Exactly.
We predicted this many months ago. I think everyone predicted this many months ago, that we would end up eventually right back to where we were 2-3 months ago with the United States at war with Iran.
Yeah. Well, I expected the U.S. and Iran to stay in this quasi-war, not war state right up till the oil shortage that forces a resolution.
So I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. We were hoping that the MOU could take us out of this situation.
Trump wasn't ready to accept it yet. He need the pressure of the oil shortage to get him to do that.
I've said many times that the MOU was a good deal for the United States.
For the United States, maybe. For Trump, political suicide. He's going to be forced to do that political suicide later, but he understandably wants to delay that point. So, right up till there's a catastrophic oil shortage, Trump will keep fighting this Iran war and pretend he's winning.
Yeah, the United States had to give a lot to Iran, had to concede quite a bit, but it gave Trump his exit. It got him out of the conflict. But
if the exit comes at the cost of his entire political capital and turning him into a lame duck, is it worth anything to him?
There are forces that are much more powerful than the U.S. president, and they have dragged him back into the conflict. And those forces, they did it in a very devious and clever way. They tried to push the ships through the southern route, through the Oman route. The conflict in Lebanon continued.
I'm not sure it's entirely only the devious forces. I think that might have been Trump too. Trump understanding that the current MOU is catastrophic for him, so pressed the military to find a better solution, and the military did that. It might not only be devious forces. It might be Trump himself who's refusing to acknowledge defeat, and that's why he had the military try to open the Omani route. All this nonsense will end when the oil goes short.
Frozen assets, sanctions, none of that stuff was really lifted. So the policy after the MOU, which we have described on the Duran as very similar to the Minsk agreement, the same exact strategy and tactic, was to get a pause in the conflict, and then to use the time to try and gain leverage over the opponent. And that's exactly what the United States did.
Trump does want an out to this desperately. He just wants an out that's politically survivable for him. So I think he wanted the MOU to get Straits open, get oil flowing, and his idea was to renegotiate, quote unquote, the MOU during the 60 days into something more favorable to him. And having the opening the Omani passage, trying to break Iran's control over the strait was part of that. But it failed, and so we're back to war.
It was using the 60 days. We didn't even get to 60 days. We got to 3 weeks. But it was using the time that it was afforded through the MOU and through the drop in oil prices, because the drop in oil prices also gave Trump some time and space. And it was using that to try and remove leverage that Iran had. And the big leverage is what? The Strait of Hormuz. So round one of the conflict, Midnight Hammer, was about hitting the nuclear power plants, right? The nuclear facilities, excuse me. And that was round one of the conflict. Round two was all about regime change.
Yep.
And now round three is all about Hormuz. This is a fight for Hormuz, because the thinking in DC is that if we could not get Hormuz through the 60-day ceasefire, try to remove Iran's leverage.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to do. Sneakily agree to the MOU, then open the Omani Passage. Put that up here. There we go. The Omani Passage, right there. That's what we tried to do during the 60 days, have ships go through here. Iran shut that down. They mined this area right here, and they've attacked ships all across the route. 2 have sunk, I think. It's, the Omani route is dead.
Over Hormuz through the 60-day ceasefire, then we'll try to take it by force. And that's what they're doing right now. They're trying to figure out a way, and they've got all these plans, military plans and airstrike plans. They're trying to figure out, how do we get control of Hormuz? Do we have to take Karg Island? Do we have to bomb pickaxe?
Spoiler, U.S. can't. The geography is too favorable to Iran. Air of drones and missiles, it's just impossible. If you just look at the geography itself of the area, it's just a mountain fortress. And all of these mountains are missiles. And this is Strait of Hormuz here. And look, there's islands here, any place from any of these mountains or the coastline. They have line of sight over the straits, and they can hit anything. Look, you can see here the shadow from the mountains cast all the way into the straits. It's a kill box in military terms. You can't break control of that without taking out entirety of Iran.
Mountain. Do we have to send ground troops in there? Not U.S. ground troops. The Kurds. Let's have the Iraqi PM to D.C. Let's see if we can use Iraq as a staging area, and maybe see if we can get the Kurds back in the game. Why is Iran hitting the Kurds so hard in Iraq all of a sudden? And they're pounding the Kurds in Iraq. They must know something, or they must believe that the Kurds are being prepared for some sort of an incursion. So I mean, we're at a worse situation now than where we were, say, 2-3 months ago in round 2 of this conflict, because now the fight is over Hormuz, which was open 3-4 months ago. So if round 2 was about regime change, which failed, now it's about, let's take Hormuz. Let's figure out a way to take Hormuz. The problem that the Trump administration has is that the petroleum reserves are running very low, and the weapons are running very low. So the clock is ticking. Do they have a plan as to how they're going to accomplish this? How they're going to take away the leverage that Iran has, which is that strait? I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they are building up to a plan. Maybe these airstrikes are building up to something. Once again, Mario, we're going to have to wait.
Very possibly. This is Trump's last desperate temper tantrum of not wanting to recognize his defeat to Iran. And so there's no telling what he will or won't do.
And see where all this is going. The part that really worries me is what you said about desalination.
Yeah, that's a huge red line. Like, it's crazy that no one's up in arms. Yeah,
because this could cause a humanitarian crisis, a catastrophic.
Iran has hit 2 desalination plants, I believe, in Kuwait, and 2 power stations in retaliations to for all the bridges and other infrastructure the United States has hit. And they've announced their plan to destroy all the energy and desalination plants in the Gulf if the United States continues to escalate its strikes on civilian infrastructure.
Catastrophic situation in the Gulf if Iran goes after the desalination plants in the Gulf countries. I mean, this could affect the lives of millions and millions of people. So, I mean, this is a terrible...
Including Mario right here, who is in Dubai.
Escalation. And this has to be stopped. But I don't hear anybody saying, let's put a red line at the desalination facilities. We can't hit those. From the U.S. side, we can't hit those because Iran is then going to hit the plants in the Gulf countries. And so there should be some sort of guardrail or something put in place, but I don't see anyone sounding any alarms about this. This worries me a lot. Yeah,
exactly. Me too. Like everyone's just, I've said before, the word I've used before is just complacent about it or indifferent about it. That's the concerning part.
The whole, you nailed it right there. The whole thing is
the World Cup's going on right now. Everyone's distracted. No, I'm kidding. But a good part of the world is distracted by that.
Worrying because we're now at round 3, and the United States is attacking Iran. Iran is attacking the Gulf countries, and 4 or 5 years ago, this would have never. If you had told someone this is what's going to happen in the Middle East, everyone would have said you're crazy. And all of a sudden, everyone's complacent about this. Okay, so now we got the startup in the war again. Okay, maybe they'll fuck.
You see, that's what's going to change, and what needs to change is the rest of the world, Americans, being complacent about what's going on in the Middle East. Once the oil shortage happens, once there's a shortage of diesel, jet fuel, flights get canceled, hundreds of thousands of Americans, millions of Americans get impacted by what's going on in the Middle East, they will care more. Attacking Iran again won't be possible. The Americans and the rest of the world will demand Trump fix it, which will involve surrendering to Iran, and they will not tolerate any idea of attacking Iran again with this memory of what the shortage in mind. Iran will have established real deterrence, because everyone's talked about all this huge influence of the neocons, the Israeli lobby on Trump and Washington. Yes, they have a big influence, but not that big. Compared to an actual oil shortage in the world, that will create pressure that dwarfs anything Israel can bring to bear. And the neocons in Washington will be shut down permanently over Iran. Oh, I'm sure the CIA will continue covert actions against Iran, but any idea of military action by America, that'll be off the table permanently.
Find another pause, and then we'll go to round 4 in the next 3 months. Maybe not. Maybe this will continue, and this will be one of those forever wars. But everyone's complacent about it. It's been accepted.
Not forever. It will end. The shortage will bring it to an end. There's very little public support for this war to begin with. Once you have an oil shortage that impacts the lives of Americans, they will revolt. I mean, Trump will plummet in the polls, and Republicans will panic. The rest of the world will be pressuring the United States. Yeah, Trump will have to capitulate.
Accepted that this is the situation now. The U.S. and Israel at war with Iran, and Iran retaliating into the Gulf countries. When do other countries get brought into this? Saudi Arabia is already being pulled into this.
They were attacked heavily yesterday. They were attacked, yes. No, but also Iran attacked Saudi yesterday. They attacked Yanbu and somewhere else.
They're being pulled into this, or being pulled. I mean, they're being pulled in, and they're also being used as a proxy. I mean, it's kind of both. But this is the danger in all of this. Bahrain is getting hit. Jordan is getting hit.
Yep.
Iraq is getting hit. The U.S. is hitting the facilities and bridges and railways in Iran. So Iran is hitting bridges in Saudi Arabia. Pretty soon, you're going to get the strikes into Israel, I imagine. I mean, so far we haven't seen strikes into Israel. But if this continues, eventually you're going to get there as well. But maybe they find another way to pause this. But I think you're 100% correct when you say that everyone is now complacent. It's as if we've accepted that there's going to be a long conflict in this region. We've accepted it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bad situation. And you have all the economic issues around all of this, which is also something that it's really weird. Everyone's complacent about that as well. We're in a worse situation where we were 3 months ago as far as the gas situation and the oil situation. The energy crisis is building. But you don't really hear any regions, any countries. No one's really saying anything about it. Any leaders? No one.
Yeah, it's the calm before the storm. We're just going to go off a cliff. In a normally functioning market, as the oil shortage grow, prices would spike in oil, reduce demand, and there wouldn't be like actual shortage, just prices would go up. But because of our wonderful mismanagers of the economy in Washington and in the media, we're just going to go off the cliff. There's going to be shortages. Prices will spike to stratospheric levels. It's going to be a very hard adjustment to the new reality of this. Just look at all this oil missing, and it's continuing.
No one's really talking about where we're heading with the situation with regards to energy. The storage
I am.
facilities. The EU is running very low on storage.
I've been saying that gas in Europe this winter is going to be a disaster.
The strategic petroleum reserves are very low for the United States. Seems like all the leaders around the world are just kind of like, we'll be okay, or let's not talk about it. Which is very weak.
It's the summer doldrums. Everyone's just ignoring the problems. And then people come back to work in September, and that's why September is the market with the most market crashes. Everyone, even if they know that there's a disaster impending, they usually try to delay it past the summer vacation. And September is the ugly month. Though I don't know if they can delay the oil crisis that long.
Weird. It's a very strange situation.
Yeah, Professor Morandi was also telling me earlier, earlier today, an hour ago, that people in Iran or officials in Iran or military personnel in Iran see the strikes by the Americans as to be a shaping operation for some sort of ground incursion.
It is.
Now, he's not sure whether they'll go ahead and conduct a ground operation on some of the islands in the south, but I've had a few military people on my show talk about it, and that's how it potentially looks. And now the bridges is cutting off the supply routes to Bandar Abbas. They struck a desalination plant on, I think, Kish Island to make it hard.
Honestly, Trump isn't a complete moron. He knows in 40 days of bombing at the beginning of the war, we didn't get Iran to capitulate. He must know that this latest round of bombing, if it's just more of the same, is not going to change anything. Especially since we're hitting them less hard now than we did back then. So he's either going to escalate this into a ground invasion or escalate this in terms of targets hit. And he's already done that side, like striking bridges, infrastructure, which he didn't do in the first 40 days. So I think it's both, actually. I think they're hitting the bridges to cut off the areas that the United States might go into so that Iran can't easily bring in more troops.
Sustain troop presence there. Look, the military build-up before this war, I was like, I know it looks like it, but it's probably a bluff to get Iran to concede on the negotiating table. And then it turned out not to be a bluff, and the decision to attack Iran was already made. So now, this being a shaping operation, looking like a shaping operation, is it a bluff to get Iran to concede on a fee on the Strait of Hormuz, or has the decision already been made for a ground operation now or in a few months or early next year after the midterms?
I don't think there's any bluff. I don't think there was a bluff before.
I don't think it's that far off. The bridges they're bombing now will be repaired in less than a month, or in 2 months in most cases. So if it's a shaping operation, the operation has to take place relatively soon. Or you do the shaping operation, that's why it's called shaping, right before you launch the ground invasion. They might also do something after the midterms, but I don't think so, because oil shortage will end that. I think the real risk is next week for ground invasion.
I don't think there's a bluff now. We've always stood by our analysis that
this weekend or next.
And even with the MOU, we said that this MOU is very flimsy. It's very much like the Minsk agreement, but instead of 8 years before we get the start of the conflict, it'll be condensed to a couple of weeks, and that's exactly how long the MOU lasted. There are no bluffs going on. There were never any real negotiations going on. There were messages that were being passed between both.
Trump has been lying out of his ass ever since this Iran war started. Always saying there's negotiations this, there's negotiation that, we're on the verge of the deal. It was market manipulation, most of it.
Both parties with Qatar and Pakistan acting as couriers. The conflict will run its course, whatever that may be. As far as a shaping operation, I agree that this is where we're most likely heading. Airstrikes are not going to be able to push Iran or to scare Iran into conceding Hormuz.
Yep, Trump must know that.
Which is effectively what the U.S. now wants. They want Hormuz. So,
because if the war ends with Iran controlling Hormuz, the entire world will see that Iran won the war. Everyone. Trump won't be able to pretend we won so much over Iran. No, if we won so much over Iran, they wouldn't be controlling the straits. So that's why Trump needs to get the strait open so he can claim victory in this war. He can pretend about nuclear material. He could say, well, we bombed them. We know it's underground. They can never make a bomb. He can make up whatever lies he wants about that. But control over the Strait of Hormuz is there for everyone to see. Is Iran charging a toll, or is it not charging a toll? That's the question. And if it's charging a toll, U.S. lost. And Trump can't pretend nothing.
The airstrikes are not going to be able to do the job. You're going to have to put boots on the ground.
So what's happening is, I don't think some of these commentators get this. Everything that's going on is how Trump is playing to the Asmongold of the world, to the average person that has no idea what's going on. Trump wants to be able to keep pretending to the Asmongold of the world that he won the war. And he can't let Iran control the straits because of that.
I think the Trump administration is debating whose boots, right? You don't want American boots there, at least not directly. Okay, you can have them in a supporting capacity. I think Israel is very much in the same position. They'll provide air support. But the big question is, who can they get to enter into Iran? And what does it mean to enter into Iran? Well,
not enough forces to make any meaningful difference. And what's really frustrating for Trump, whatever, even if he did get Kurdish invasion of Iran, that would happen on the Western Front. The Pakistan is not doing anything. Nothing's going to happen over this side or Turkestan. So there's no chance of getting any boots on the ground on the eastern side of Iran. Anything that happened would be like the Kurdish militias, most likely candidate. That doesn't help with the Strait of Hormuz. That's all the way over here. Strait of Hormuz is here. So it wouldn't break Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. It might be, if the United States decides to do something, try to seize an island here, maybe they'll have a Kurdish incursion at the same time to try to distract Iran. That's possible. But the only hope of opening the straits is if the United States itself militarily does something here.
You know, what is the goal in all of this? Is it to get a foothold and to control a small piece of territory? Is it about something bigger, which is just insane? The whole thing is insane. But the part that gives it away to me is the Iraqi prime minister's visit to D.C. and Iran's strikes into Iran, hitting Kurdish facilities, and Kurdish ammo depots. To me, that signals something, that Iran, which has very good intel as to what is going on in Iraq, they must sense or know that something is being cooked up. And I just...
By the way, the strongest of Iran's proxies or allies in the region is the Iraqi militias. They're stronger than Hezbollah. They're stronger than the Houthis. And that makes complete sense given Iraq's geographic location right next to Iran, easiest to supply with all kinds of weapons, and Iraq has a huge Shia population. So if there is any type of escalation, if Kurdish try something against Iran, Iran will activate the Iraqi militias to either fight the Kurds or fight any U.S. troops in the region.
You know, I see the Iraqi prime minister in D.C., and it's not by coincidence, or it's not because Trump wants to meet him and he wants to talk to the guy and do whatever. They're asking him what.
By the way, the new Iraqi prime minister was chosen by us, the United States. Remember that story? Iraqis ruling pro-Iran bloc races to choose prime minister, while the U.S. reject main candidates. Don't know if you can... Basically, because when monthly transfers of U.S. dollars, Iraqi sells its oil, and the money isn't paid to Iraq. It's paid to the U.S. Treasury at Federal Reserve. And then the U.S. Treasury gives the money to Iraq if it approves of whatever Iraq is doing. And because we didn't like their choices for prime ministers, we basically selected their prime ministers by process of elimination. We don't like that guy. We don't like that guy. We don't like... Okay, that guy. Yes, you could put that guy in. That's what we did. And so not very democratic, is it?
What is the possibility of using your territory as a staging area, and who can we get? This is the big question. Who can we get? Who can we convince?
Now, you think that's what
to be-
that's what
or
the
who
Iraqi
can we
prime minister was being
convince to be our
discussed?
proxy? Well,
Jesus Christ. The Syria al-Shara and then the Iraqi prime minister.
well, the strategy that they used in Syria. Syria took many years.
Exactly. This is what I've been saying. Syria was first. There was Project Syria, and that went on from 2011 to 2024, when Assad regime finally fell in December 2024. Now it's Project Iran. They've less than 6 months after Assad was forced out, Israel bombs Iran, and then that was 12-day war. Then less than 6 months later, we attack Iran again. It's all about Project Iran, and I guarantee you, all the resources that were put into Syria by Mossad, CIA, whatever, to fund extremists there to destroy the country. Now that's all being directed towards Iran. Except Iran is a much harder target to take out than Assad. Much deeper public support. It's not going to work. And it took them 14 years, nearly, to take out Assad. Considering how much harder it's going to be to take out Iran, I don't think they can do it. Not before the Western dollar hegemony collapses.
Which is why I'm saying this may not resolve in weeks or months. Maybe this does turn into many years. The U.S. will wait. They'll wait until the time is right, or they'll chip away until they break through.
That's Kurdistan.
Yeah, that's inside Iraq, Kurdistan.
Well, there you go. Yeah. They're hitting it hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yesterday was insane.
And this follows on the visit from the Iraqi prime minister to D.C.
True.
So the thinking that this is going to be a quick operation, if there is indeed going to be some sort of an operation into Iran, that this is going to be something that happens quickly, maybe not. I think the U.S. and the military.
I think it needs to happen quickly, because otherwise there's an oil crisis. Trump is forced to surrender, and that'll involve giving Iran permanent control over the Strait of Hormuz. And at that point, it will be hard after that there's no chance of any land invasion happening after that, because the American people will care now what happens in the Middle East. They don't, the Gaza, whatever. Yes, it's horrible what Israel is doing, and I'm against it, but I'm not actively angry. I'm not protesting, but you try to go after Iran again, people will go ballistic and say, look what happened last time. We ran out of oil. We still don't have oil. Oil price is still high. No, don't even think about it. Yeah. Iran is on the verge of establishing real deterrence. I'm loving it.
Planners and the neocon forces and all of these guys.
Putting an end to all this war nonsense on the part of the United States.
The strategy is to chip away. And when they break through, they break through. If it takes a month, it takes a month. If it takes a year, it takes a year. The big problem
That's what I said. The establishment, the deep state, it only has one direction. Attack, 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 attack. Before it was Syria, and they funded ISIS to take out Assad, broke Syria apart piece by piece. Now it's Project Iran, but Iran is a much tougher foe to take on. And it's backed aggressively by Russia. It has that advantage that Syria was relatively isolated. Turkey and Iraq were allies of the U.S., and Turkey was involved in breaking apart Syria. Iraq was neutral on that. Iran, by contrast, it's directly connected to Moscow. It has direct support from Moscow. Moscow isn't going to let it go under.
That they're going to have to deal with, and I don't think they figured that one out, is the economic situation and the oil situation. This is something that wasn't present in Syria. This is something that wasn't present in other regime change operations and other wars that the neocons conducted. The problem with the neocons, though, is their big blind spot is that they never think about economics. For them, it's irrelevant. They don't care about that stuff. They don't care about
exactly, and that's going to be the undoing in this case, because economics, the pressure it's going to be able to bring to bear on Trump will dwarf anything Israel or the neocons can muster.
about energy. They don't care about the economic situation in the U.S. or the global economic situation. For them, it's just put it in gear and just keep on going forward.
Exactly.
They don't care about all that stuff.
Attack, attack, attack.
But Trump is going to have to care about that stuff because we know the situation with the petroleum reserves, and we see what's happening with the price of oil.
Yeah, that's why I'm just so surprised we're here. That's why I'm so surprised.
You shouldn't be surprised.
I'm not. I've been predicting this. I said it would end in August. 6 months holding Strait of Hormuz closed, Iran wins. We're reaching that point. It was never going to be resolved before then. And I predicted that it'd be an on and off war right up until the very end. And then right now we're in Trump's last temper tantrum before the end.
The Israeli defense establishment is preparing for a possibility of a significant escalation in the region, according to I-24.
It may not happen. My point is that it may not happen now. It may happen now. It may happen tomorrow, right? But it may not happen now.
I'm saying this clearly. It will happen now, before the end of July, a ground invasion by the United States, or it will not happen at all. There will be no 6 months from now. The oil shortage, when it happens, will focus the world and the U.S. population, U.S. voters, on Iraq and saying, we don't give a fuck about Iraq. Why are you attacking Iraq? We want oil. And ultimately, fuck Israel. Yeah, that's what Americans will say. We want oil. Fuck Israel. And, yep, it will be a tsunami of public opinion, and no one in U.S. politics will be able to ignore it. And the idea of attacking Iran officially, like U.S. warring against Iran like it's doing now, that's going to die. Of course, the Syria model is still there, which is arming ISIS or any other terrorist group to try to break Iran apart from within. That's still going to be all going on, but no more official action by U.S. troops.
My point in all of this is that whether it happens now or whether it happens in 5 years, the course has already been set. Just like with Syria, think of it as a...
It won't happen in 5 years either, because Iran will be a nuclear state. Well, probably before the end of the year. Maybe before the end of the month.
Bigger Syria. But the big problem that they have there's many big problems that they have with trying to regime change and destroy Iran. It's a much more difficult country than say, what Syria was.
Yes.
And for that, they waited 10 years. How long did they wait?
Longer than that. The civil war in Syria started in 2011, and it fell in 2024, December 2024. That's 13 years. It took them a long time to take down Assad.
Syria, but they were chipped.
But again, Assad was surrounded by Israel right on its border, Turkey above, both of them having hostile intent towards Syria, and meanwhile Russia was preoccupied with the war in Ukraine. There was a limit to what it could do to support Assad. Iran, by contrast, it's much easier for Russia to support Iran. Iran is much stronger to begin with, and China supports both Russia and Iran. So, completely different situation.
Chipping away at it every so often, whether it was sanctions, whether it was IS, whatever they could do. They were chipping away, and they finally got their breakthrough. And I think it's the same strategy with Iran, but it's a much more difficult, much more complicated situation, and a much more complicated country for them to do such things. But I think the course has been set. There's no reverse gear.
It's now Project Iran. Before it was Project Syria, now it's Project Iran.
Once they've made up their mind, they've made up their mind. So I think that's
how bad do you think it could get for the region?
If they go after the desalination plant, it could be a disaster.
But do you think they would go after them? Do you think that will get to that level?
Well, they already have. United States. It's already gone after them. Okay, will it continue to go after them? I think that one of the Gulf states might be sacrificed in that United States continues to go after desalination plants. Iran completely destroys all of them in, say, Kuwait. And the rest of the Gulf sees that, and they absolutely panic and forbid the United States from hitting any more desalination plants. But we're probably going to need one disaster before, the rest of the Gulf states rebel and tell Trump stop hitting that.
I think they're going after them. They hit a water pumping station a couple of days ago.
Well, they hit a desalination plant
They
yesterday.
hit a desalination plant yesterday. They're hitting the bridges. The question is, will
By the way,
Iran...
both sides have. Iran struck a desalination plant in Kuwait, and the Americans struck a desalination plant. And no one on Kish Island,
That's-
but they struck other places.
Well, that's that. Yeah, you anticipated what I was going to say. Does it stop there? Or will more water facilities and desalination plants be hit in Iran? Because then Iran is
what
going
in
to
Iran.
have to retaliate by hitting the Gulf countries. And was the strike in Kuwait? Was it? I mean, I don't know what was the damage assessment of that. Was the plant destroyed, or was it more of a warning strike?
So, destroyed according to I think according to the Kuwaitis, then Tehran targeted and destroyed another water desalination plant. So there's two of them as far as I'm aware now, and another power plant was also targeted, sustaining damage, not destruction. And that's on top of yesterday as well. You can show this one, Lisa. Yesterday,
Yeah, look at that destruction.
Iran struck the KNPC North P, which exports crude oil. The facility is on fire, smoke is visible. So they've struck oil facilities in the port. They've struck 2 desalination plant and 2 power stations in retaliation for the strikes on the infrastructure in Iran by the Americans in the last few days. And the Iranian military said, we won't wait any longer for the enemy to increase strikes against our vital infrastructure. We have begun to implement a phased plan which will end with the complete destruction of all regional energy and water purification infrastructure if the U.S. aggression against Iran does not immediately stop. As part of the first stage of this plan, all power plants and water desalination plants in Kuwait are now part of our target bank.
And you have to remember, yes, it's terrible for the people in Kuwait too, but it also fucks over the U.S. bases in the area. There's no water. That includes the U.S. bases. I'm just saying that it's not as though the United States can just sacrifice Kuwait to continue its attacks against Iran. No, once all the power plants and all the desalination plants are destroyed in Kuwait, U.S. bases there are inoperable because they have no water or power either.
So the Iranians have they've answered that question
Pretty
themselves.
clear. Yeah, it's pretty clear, the statement. Yeah,
So
the
all eyes
statement
now are on Trump, what Trump does.
Yeah, it's catastrophic. If we go down that route. Does the United States care? Do the neocons care? Have the neocons reached the point where they say, you know what, we don't give an F? Humanitarian crisis in the Gulf countries, we don't care anymore. I don't know. That could be their thinking as well. They could be saying, you know, we have X amount of days or weeks, given the situation with petroleum reserves. I mean, this could be a conversation that Bessent is having. You know, we have X amount of petroleum reserves. I can keep the price of oil to 100 or around.
Wars are won and lost on logistics, on getting supplies and ammunition to the troops.
100 for this long. So we just got to go all out. And whatever happens in the Gulf happens in the Gulf. You know, it's very much the same approach they could be taking, and I hope they're not, but they could be taking the same approach with the Gulf countries that they took with the European countries, which is the vassals are there to sacrifice themselves for empire. That's what they're there for.
They are vassals. They are puppet states. That's why there's all these military bases in the region. Iran doesn't have any U.S. bases. It's not a vassal. All of these are.
What vassal countries, that's the purpose of a vassal, to be sacrificed at the feet of the empire, which is exactly what the Europeans are doing. That's the role of the Europeans, and that's what they're executing. They're destroying themselves, they're destroying their economies to the benefit of the empire. So, you know, they could also be taking that approach with the Gulf countries. You're going to take the hits, you're going to absorb the hits, because we got a plan that we need to execute.
So you don't think the Americans really care about what happens to the Gulf that much, even though the Gulf has given money to Jared Kushner's fund, Trump's crypto projects, Qatar gave him that plane.
The money's been given, right? I mean,
But there's also promises of more investments into the Americans.
Look, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm saying this could be one of the scenarios. You know, I'll go back to what we said earlier in the program. We're going to have to wait and see how this unfolds. But the one certainty, in my opinion, is that the decision has been made to regime change Iran, to destroy Iran. I think that decision has been made, just like it was made for Syria, just like it was made for Libya, or just like it was made for Iraq.
So
He's saying exactly what I have. There was Project, Syria, then there's Project Iraq, there's Project Libya. Now it's Project Iran.
It's made for Ukraine. The decision has been made.
Project Ukraine, definitely. That's another big project.
for years.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think
And now it's Project Russia too, but that one has no hope of success either.
I think that's been decided. Whether it takes months or whether it takes 10 years, they're not going to stop.
Yeah. Well, there's
That's where we are.
and there's reports of multiple explosions in Bandar Abbas, which has been struck the whole time. So despite the threats, there's another threat by the Iranians as well, that if these attacks by the Americans continue for another 2-3 days, the Iranians will consider this, if the rules of engagement will change, and this will be a full-blown war, no longer tit for tat. So that's what the Iranians said. So they gave a deadline not only for the infrastructure, but also for any attacks on Iran now. They gave a deadline of 2 to 3 days. That was, I think, this morning that they gave that deadline. So by early next week, Monday, Tuesday next week, Monday.
Meanwhile, Trump has said he's going to unleash the gates of hell after the death of the U.S. soldiers. The title of this video, 2 dead from attacks by Iran. And Trump is like, unleash the gates of hell. With what weapons? Yes, the United States can still escalate, but not that much. We're reaching we don't have as many assets in the region as we did during the first phase of the war, so we can't go that hard anymore.
Next week, if the attacks by the Americans continue, then Iran will treat this as a full-scale war again. They've already called the MOU dead earlier today. They've said the MOU, I think they used the word suspended. Yeah. They made it official this morning as well.
It's dead.
It can't get any worse than this, really.
Yeah. My model had a hiccup. iPhone said, oh, you want to use mobile data or do you want to keep using Wi-Fi? La.
I mean, don't say that. Let's hope it doesn't.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm hoping that it doesn't, but it could get it could get a lot worse.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, you know, these things are not about. It's not even about the president of the United States. It's not Republican.
Oh, it's absolutely not about the president of the United States. It's the deep state. It's the corrupt establishment. And that's why I say this war would have happened even if Kamala Harris was elected. Syria falls December 2024. Then it's Project Iran. Israel would have still attacked Iran exactly when it did, regardless of who it had been president. And the United States would have eventually been dragged into the war.
They're Democrat. You know, these decisions are made at a different level. And the big question is, can Iran absorb it, and can they outlast, you know, the push to?
They can. I've said it already. It's the oil shortage that's going to end the neocons' plan. Then it will all shift to covert actions. It's going to be they're going to try to do to Iran what they did to Syria, creating ISIS in Syria. A lot of people are going to die because of that, but that's a later problem.
To knock them out, to knock them down. You know, this is going to go 12 rounds. This is going to go the distance. So, I mean, you know, a lot can change in 5 years. A lot can change in 10 years, right? But the decision to destroy Iran, at least by these forces that at the moment control the United States, I think that's the one big takeaway. You know, unfortunately, Mario, the neocon forces control U.S. foreign policy. They have a firm grip on U.S. foreign policy.
Well, the neocons and the Zionists are just outside, are part of the deep state. It's the true deep state that wants this war.
And any other voices that are in the administration that try to extract the U.S. from these foreign policy misadventures and regime change operations and war.
The Epstein crowd. I think that's the best way to just refer to them. The Epstein crowd.
First, you know, they get silenced. They get removed. And it's been like that for many, many decades.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, appreciate you jumping on. Appreciate the analysis as always.
Thank you, Mario.
Thanks, Alex.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. That's a great short little video on the situation in Iran. And yes, it's Project Iran right now. It's going to be attack. That's why, actually, I was happy about this one. Because unlike Syria, that one, I watched what was happening to Syria over those 13 years. And it was just depressing, just watching the state slowly being chipped away to nothing. Iran, though, is a different beast, and its control over Strait of Hormuz means that it has so much leverage compared to Syria. It's not going to be as easy to bully it around. Plus, again, geography. It has direct connection to Russia that can't be intercepted, and any supplies needed can be brought in that way, and China through Pakistan. It's not like Syria, which was cut off by U.S.-controlled Iraq and Turkey, and then Syria, Israel. It was terrible to be Syria, surrounded by adversaries. Iran's different, though. It is a fortress country. Syria, we can't really see it, is the same flat lands as everywhere else, not easily defendable. Iran is different. Some of these mountains are too high for helicopters to fly over. That's how high these mountains are. It's not an easy place to assault. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you next video. Bye.